की गलती हुई तो यूनिट बंद कर दूंगा और तुझे निष्कासित।
सर, व्हाट इज निष्कासित सर?
टर्मिनेशन। मिनिस्टर को ट्रांसलेटर बना के रखा है।
So, Raashii, it's always so good to have you on Filme Shilmy. A warm welcome to you and congratulations on Farzi.
Thank you so much. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty overwhelmed at this point.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, what a lovely role it was. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, just my mind. I mean, the way I was watching this series, it really brought me back memories of Shreya Dhanvantri's character actually in Scam 1992, where she's almost this, this catalyst towards exposing the wrongdoers in this whole cat and mouse chase. But I think when it comes to this character in particular, what was some of the, I guess, some of the skills required for you to actually really get into the skin of it?
I think the first thing I really had to understand was how to differentiate between a real and a fake note. I think most of my homework was already done by the creators themselves. I just had to like follow that path, and they basically told me that there's a certain kind of ink, there's a certain kind of ascending order that the numbers are written in, which I had no idea about. So I was like the student learning all of this. It was quite mind blowing because I don't think the normal audience, we as people even know about these technicalities or these really minute details on a note, which I learned about. And more than anything, I think it is a character that is very, very real. So I had to keep it very real. I had to really work on toning down everything that I had done before, because most of the characters I had done were sort of caricature-ish, and this one was very real. So I had to really work around that. And I was also quite nervous because this series has all these other giants like Shahid and Vijay Sethupathi and KK Menon. So for me also, I feel like to balance uh, in a frame which has all of them was very important for me. So I think I did give it my all. Like I really worked very hard to make sure they get what they want also. Yeah.
Sure. Now, I think what I really like about your character in this series in particular is that you're a woman in a man's world, basically. And I think that, the gender sort of play was very subtly done. And I really enjoyed watching that. But I think when it does come to this is obviously your second digital series, digital venture. So when it comes to roles like this and even Rudra, which again was quite a strong character as well, how important is it for you as an actor to be selective when it does come to contents as well?
I think it can make or break your career, like the choices you make.
True.
Like it really matters the choices you make. And I've been saying this, that I'm okay to wait out. I'm okay to see that I make the right choice, because that should help me grow as a person and as an actor. Otherwise, it really doesn't make any sense at this point. Having said that, I also love doing the singing and dancing, because I think that's what the Hindi film industry is majorly known for also. I really enjoyed growing up watching all that. So for me, that is also important, as much as it is important that I show myself as an actor, because that's my craft that I really need to work on. So I think the balance is what I aim for, and I look for that. If I'm doing something very content driven, I should balance it with something that's very commercial.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned commercial as well, because your career in the South is incredible. I mean over the last, I think, 2 3 years, I've been watching a lot of South content. In fact, I watched your film with Dhanush and I really enjoyed it. Even Sardar, I really liked that movie as well with Karthi. I think it was amazing. But I think even in this series as well, I mean, Vijay Sethupathi speaks in Hindi. I mean, he did such a great job as well. We see that sort of South flavor coming into play as well because of the cast. I think Regina is also in the series as well. So I think when it comes to this whole collaboration, I mean, was Raj and DK quite clear with you beforehand that they wanted to explore both the flavors of Hindi and Tamil cinema, or any other South sort of region? Was that something that they clarified beforehand with you?
I think they didn't. I think I knew that Shahid Kapoor was on board. I also knew Vijay Sethupathi was on board, and they did want to bring in all the flavors from India, because they were like, this is an Indian show, and it should have as many people as we can bring in from every place. But for me, it was obviously a girl from, like, I'm a Delhi girl, but I'm also into the South. So for me, it was an identity crisis because South Indians genuinely think that I'm a South Indian, which is amazing. But I technically am from the North. So for them, they were looking for a North Indian girl, but they found that character in me, which was great for me. That was a very big opportunity even for me to, really move out from what I had been doing and coming into this. But with me, they never had that, oh, we're bringing the South flavor. With me, they were like, oh, bringing a fresh face. So for me, this is like another start to my career. That's how I feel and see it.
And I must say one thing. I mean, we all love Hindi cinema, don't get me wrong, right? But I think, I feel where actresses, for example, because you began, I think it was in Madras Cafe, right? It was a
Yes,
supporting role that
yes.
you had with that. And then obviously you eventually became the leads in major South movies with huge actors as well. I feel like the South has always, in a way, has also given platform to actresses perhaps who aren't, let's just say, easily picked up by Bollywood or by Hindi cinema. So I think for you, having worked in the South, and I know we spoke about this at length in our previous interview as well, but I think it would be really nice to rehash it. But how, working in the South, what sort of learnings has it taught you? And I think now that we're seeing this very pan India appeal now, where it's not North and South, it's like you said, it's Indian content. I mean, how satisfying is it now, and how reassuring is it actually to be in this position right now?
I feel that the South was a learning ground for me where I learned so much. I grew as a person, I grew as an actor because I worked with all these stellar performers, but as a person because I got to learn about this completely new culture. And I think the way you move from Hyderabad, like it's Telugu, then you move to Tamil in Chennai, or you go to Kochi, and then there's Malayalam, or you go to Bangalore, there's Kannada. So I think there was so many cultures that I was exposed to. So I definitely grew as a person because I learned so much about all these cultures. I assimilated into them. I became like one of them, and that was a beautiful feeling while I was doing all these films. And of course, I improved on my skill as an actor because I got to work with all these names, with the Dhanush, with the Mohanlal sir, with the Prithviraj, with the Junior NTR. And I think the more films I did, the more I grew and I kept growing. And even when I came here, and I'm so glad I did the Rajan DK show because I learned amazing things about acting, about direction, even from them, and even from Shahid and Sadhupati. So I think it's a constant process. I still feel like I'm a student of cinema, and there's so much more that I need to learn because every set I learn something or the other. So I think I'll always be a student for life.
Sure, I'm glad you've mentioned student actually, because I would love to know whose work has really inspired you, and whose work really do you like use as a reference point. I think because I think we always need a someone we look up to, whichever profession we're in.
I don't think I ever had a reference point, honestly, where I was like, oh, I want to be this or I want to have this journey, because I genuinely feel that in this profession, because there's so many, it's so unpredictable. You cannot really follow anyone's journey, or you cannot become like one person. Everyone has very distinct journeys, and not one of them is the same. So I never really aspired to be one person. I looked at roles and I said, oh, it'd be wonderful if I do this, or it'd be wonderful if I do that, but not necessarily one name that I thought, okay, this is what I want, this is who I want to be.
Sure. And Rashi, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of filmmakers and actors about this whole shift that's happening now, and the fact that South obviously is the new mainstream, definitely for sure. But why do you think it's taken some time for this sort of collaboration and this crossover to, I guess, reunite in a way? Because it's always been happening for a while. I mean, even if we look back at the Himmat Wala days, or even the Red Rose days with Rajesh Khanna as well, the South and North, collab have always transpired for some amazing pieces of cinema. I wonder, why do you think it went downhill for a while, and why do you what do you think has suddenly risen or contributed towards this rise?
I think the fact that with the coming of OTT, the language barrier has actually disappeared, because now we're more exposed to all sorts of films from all different regions. And, today, even if you ask people who a certain actor is from the South, they will know even in the northern region because they've started watching a lot of films. They've started watching, all of us are like known even in the Hindi belt because they've seen so many South films, and South people always watch North films. So I think this whole expansion happened with the during the COVID times when OTT opened the doors for all kinds of films, and now suddenly you see this amalgamation of the North and the South. And now, in all honesty, I feel right now is the time when it's actually the Indian film industry, and I don't think we should be making any more boundaries to it. And all of us are Indian actors at this point because all of us are working in all these different languages, and I think it's the perfect time to be an actor.
Right. And I think also we can also celebrate the fact that this year actually marks your 10th year since
Yes.
you made your acting debut, which is so, I mean, I can't believe it. Madras Cafe was like 10 years ago. It's crazy to
Yes,
think
me too.
about. But I think when you look back at the Raashii, who began then, and you introspect on yourself now, what would you say have been the biggest changes in you as a person?
I have completely transformed from who I was when I started out. And I think that's true for anybody who goes through any experiences in their 20s. And in a very good way, because I remember when I started out, I was this shy, inhibited girl and, doesn't know anything about cameras, doesn't know anything about angles. And today I'm much more confident on my craft and I've worked so hard to be where I am. I have grown as a person. I have learned to empathize with people because every time there's a new script and you read about a new character, it's very important that you're open to understanding the character. And to understand the character, you have to be empathetic and lose all judgment. So for me, I've become non-judgmental. I've become more focused and everything for good. Yeah, I love this phase more than any other phase in my life.
Mhm. And we talk about about experiences grounding us, and I think again what I love about South, and I think what they've managed to always capture is that there's a sense of rootedness that they have as well. I think whether it's the culture, whether it's the socio-political environment, they seem to be very grounded as well. I mean, of course, even in North as well, we also do are very grounded as well in our own ways too, definitely. But I think again, when it comes to learning about humility and the sort of the way they live as well and all of that, do you feel like that's also rubbed off on you as well and your personality as well? Do you feel like that's really helped you to perhaps see life in a very different lens as well?
See, the only thing is, in every industry, I think they share the same passion for cinema. There's not really, I mean, of course, they're all rooted in their own culture, and that's how the stories are made. That's what is cinema is anyway, a reflection of the society you live in. So that yes, their films reflect their culture, be it the North or be it the South, and that's the only difference I see. The culture, the language, of course,
Mm,
but the passion for films remains the same in both places.
right. And how passionate were you about cinema? I think before you became an actor, I would love to know what your life was like. Because often when I speak to actors, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was an accidental move that I became an actor." So I think for you, was that passion always there for you? I think from a very young age as well.
Probably I'm going to disappoint you by saying that I'm going to say the same thing, that it was an accident for me as well. I didn't think of acting at any point in my life because there was no background I had, and I come from a middle class family where you're only concerned about getting a stable job which can give you stability, and this profession is the most unstable that I know of. And suddenly you see your girl just getting into it and getting all these opportunities. So I think I've just been lucky in a way that all these opportunities came to me, but I wouldn't want to take away the hard work that I've also put in. So I think at the end of the day, it's your destiny, but it's also your hard work that puts you where it does. And yes, it happened by accident, but I embraced it and I gave it my all.
And we often talk about society mirroring, or art mirroring society, and vice versa as well. But Rashi, do you feel like we're at a stage now where the power of cinema is so strong that it can actually implement a social change? I mean, take Farzi, for example. I mean, I never realized how literally fake notes can be such a lucrative business. It was like, I mean, I felt like, हम सब अपना time waste कर रहे हैं. हम सब
प्लीज उसको lucrative मत मत समझना कि वो
नहीं,
lucrative
बिल्कुल भी
business
नहीं.
है, that is
No, no, no,
not
of course. No, it's a bad thing. And I don't mean to glorify at all by that. But, again, like, just come back to my original question about art mirroring society and all of that. Do you feel like it's at a point now where it can implement social change?
I think it's always implemented social change in some way or the other, and it's not right now. It's been happening from the start when the films started being made. Even if it's a reflection of the society, it also gives you all these. I mean, it does lead to change. if suppose, especially if it's supposedly made for that, you know, like a Rang De Basanti that you see, it ignites the fire in you. It ignites the citizen, it ignites the Indianness in you that, you know, we need, it ignites the youth. So there's so much, like you see, most of Amir Sir's films, if you see, you will find that it's always led to people leaving the theater thinking that, oh, you know, we have the power, we can change. We can change the system, and yeah, I mean, it's a very coexist, like a relationship that's very
Tight knit.
comes
Yeah.
from both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel, yes, art mirrors the society, but it's the same way. Like that's why films are very important and integral to our culture also, because, you know, that they have led to movements also, which I think is wonderful. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I'm really excited as well because you've got Yodha releasing this year.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a very exciting film. I mean, Sidharth uh, is such a lovely talent, and he's such a wonderful person, I'm sure, to work with as well. Uh, I mean, what was that experience like? I mean, it's an action thriller. I mean, that's definitely a genre which you have explored
Yes.
previously. But how was your experience of working on that? What can we look forward to? Because I know it's going to be another strong role of yours. So.
I think firstly, I would have to mention that it's a Dharma film. And for me, while I was growing up, for me, films were either Dharma film or a YRF film that you grow up watching where, you know, where you really look up to the glossy films, and that's what you want to be a part of, especially when you're an actor. And for me, I'm glad that dream came true for me to be just a part of this setup. And I was very elated when I actually had this opportunity and I grabbed it with both hands. And I think me and Sid look amazing in the film. And I think he's a wonderful co-actor. He's been a great support to me also, and there's this spiritual side that I sort of saw in him which I hadn't known of before, and that only happens when you work with people, you get to know them. We spoke a lot about that and about films, and we formed a really good bond. And I think he's doing really well for himself, and I think people will really like him even in this avatar, because I think it's action and I think he's in his zone there. And also for me, it was a very powerful role written for me, and you'll see the film, you'll know what I mean, and I think we both look great on screen. Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm definitely sure that that will definitely be the case, and I'm really looking forward to that movie as well.
Thank you.
But you know, I think what I really like as well, Rashi, is that, you know, if we look at the trends of the industry right now, it almost seems very interesting to see how realistic films now. Of course, you've got the wonderful escapist films that we all love Bollywood for, like, you know, Pathan doing really well, and it's wonderful to see that. But I think also realism is a very huge magnet now to actually bringing audiences, I feel, either on OTT or on theaters. What do you? What is your opinion on this sort of shift that we're seeing of like escapism, but yet being very realistic and authentic in its portrayal as well? What do you think has contributed towards that? Do you think it's COVID and the fact that we've kind of been used to seeing life for what it is rather than just the away with the fairies kind of narratives?
I feel there's a lot of experimentation also happening in this point, because people's appetite for films has really vastly increased, because now they're watching all sides, all sorts of content. So now it's not really a demarcation between realism and something that's over the top. There are also places which are completely experimental where you're like, oh, films like this also can be made. So I think this is the time where a lot of experiments are happening, and just we're all just trying to figure out what works. But what I think is that if your film is rooted in content, or there's something new that you're saying through your films, that is something that people are really looking forward to. They're done with the stories that have been done to death. They want to watch something new. And if you have great content, that's something that's really working at this point. And I think that it's not necessary. It's not like that there's a shift that has happened. I feel that there's an audience for everything. Like there are people who would love watching real films, but I also know people who only go to the theater to watch a commercial film.
That's
So, you know,
true.
it depends on the strata of the society also. And I think they're just consuming films, and they're just consuming content, and they're just looking for something new.
Right. I think another thing about this industry as well, Rashi, whether you have even after a success, there is a level of patience involved. You know, because you can't just have one hit and be like, you know, you can't be complacent. You have to constantly keep thriving and keep pushing. So when it comes to your career as well, and it comes to that push, what has motivated you constantly over these years? What continues to motivate you actually?
I think the most rejections you face is in this career. Honestly, you
True.
face so many rejections every day, and you become so immune to them also. But I feel that I personally, as a person, don't take success to my head, and I don't take failure to my heart, because then you can never really learn and you can never really grow. So for me, the thing that has worked is, of course, patience. You have to be patient. You don't have to sign everything that comes to you just to stay in a certain limelight, or just, I want to be known as a good actor. I want people to have, I want to have that credibility where someone's like, okay, if she's in a film, we want to watch it, so I just don't want to be in a film just to be a part of it and do nothing in it. So yeah, that's how I see my career. That's how I have been patient with films that came to me early on in my career, where I was like, no, I don't want to do this and I want to wait it out. Yes, I may have made some mistakes, but I've also learned from them. So I
Right.
think lows are also as important as highs are, and it's important to make mistakes, because otherwise you'll never learn.
And you know, vulnerability, I think, is so important. I think for any creative, you have to be open to uh, being able to react in a way which you want to react, and even ways which you might not prefer to. So I think when it comes to vulnerability, what would you say is that key source of you as a person that makes you vulnerable? What would you attribute your vulnerability to in life?
Mm. I get vulnerable when it comes to my personal space, with my family, with my friends, but not necessarily when it comes to my profession. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
I
because
think it's important to be strong-headed and in the profession, in the kind of profession that I am in. I'm only vulnerable in front of the camera if needed. Yeah.
yeah. And again, Rash, I'm going to pick up what you talked about. Again, that patience that you said about, making sure you do strong roles and not, any nilly-willy roles that comes to you. Again, but how tough is it to actually be so strong-minded actually, and so determined in that? Because, the pressure of commercial traction and the pressure of the competition that's there as well is so immense. So what keeps you stable-minded again?
If you take that pressure, you're only going to fall under it and you're never going to rise above it, is how I see it. I take pressure in the right kind of spirit, where I know that there is competition and you cannot rise when there is no competition. If you're too comfortable and you don't move out of your comfort zone, you can never rise in life. So I am very grateful for competition that is there around me, because it keeps me
Yeah.
on my toes. And
Mm.
I don't think of the things that bring me down at all. So I will probably see somebody's work. I'll really enjoy it. I'll really appreciate it. I'll obviously want to do stuff like that, but that's not something that'll bring me down. That, oh my God, why am I not in it? That's not something that happened to me. I'll probably appreciate what has happened, and I would work on myself more than looking at what everyone else is up to.
And that's so important. You're so right. I think the introspection of within, it's what actually does, then that's what also transpires exteriors as well. And I totally understand that. But look, I think Yodha looks exciting, and Farzi has obviously done really well. But what else can we look forward to from you? I mean, I'm looking forward to your next South film, if I'm honest. I always get
There's a
excited when I see your name.
there's an Aranmanai series. I think you know about. It's a horror series in Tamil, which I've just signed, which I'm going to start shooting for very soon. It's Aranmanai 4, and there's a film which are in Telugu, and there are two more that I'm reading, and I'll be taking a call on it. I'm also looking at some films in the north, because right now my target is to basically balance everything that I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about you, Rashi, is that हम जो pan India कहते हैं ना, you definitely are a testament to that. And I think your achievements have definitely been very inspiring. And
Thank
Farzi
you.
is a great show. I really enjoyed watching it on Prime Video, and I can't wait to see more excellent work coming from you, Rashi. So thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
joining
much.
me.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you.
Lovely
Bye.
talking to you.